May I come in?
Come. Good afternoon. बैठो बेटा. Sit down. Smart boy.
Thank you, sir.
So, a line about yourself, your name, and a bit of description, introduction.
Sir, my name is Pirzada Dawar Kuyum. I come from Tanbal, which is a small village on the outskirts of Baramulla district. I've done my basic schooling from St. Joseph's High Secondary School, and beyond that, I've secured my bachelor's degree in political science from GDC Boys Baramulla.
Good.
And currently, I'm pursuing my master's in the same subject from IGNOU Open University. This is my first attempt at JKPSC examinations. So besides this, my hobbies include Urdu poetry, gaming, and listening to soft music.
Good. Dawar.
Dawar, sir.
What is that?
Sir, Dawar basically means a judge or a person who's just.
Lovely. You will be. Dawar. Dawar is a godly virtue. Dawar means who matters. Authority. Okay?
Yes.
Acha, so you're interested in Urdu poetry.
Yes, sir.
Who are the poets you're so fond of?
So I'm fond of many poets, Ghalib, Iqbal, Mir. But sir, if I were to choose one, since it's very difficult, if not impossible, but I would go for Ghalib.
Okay. One verse of Ghalib that makes you fall flat.
So again, it is a very difficult choice.
Just one verse.
Still, so I would go for गालिब खस्ता के बगैर यहाँ कौन से काम बंद हैं अब रोइए ज़ार क्या कीजिए हाय क्यों.
Okay, that's nice. And your main subject is IR?
PSIR, yes sir.
IR. So how do you see this IR opening at a global level? Like we have relations at a personal level, the same get magnified at a much bigger level.
Yes,
so if you are to adjudicate between two countries, what will be the role you will be playing? Tomorrow you will be in the United Nations and you will have to be an arbitrator between two warring countries.
Okay.
What will be your first strategy to do that?
Right. So in international relations, there are many approaches to deal with international relations, relation between, as you said, two warring countries. If I were to choose a particular approach as a person of the United Nations, I would go for functionalism. I think it is the most pragmatic approach given the present day world scenario. So if I were to explain what happens in functionalism is that rather than giving importance to political relations, which tend to be messy and sort of sketchy at times, we should first go for non-political relations between nations, be it economic relations or trade relations or people-to-people contacts. And further on, we should move to political relations.
Thank you. Done.
So, Dawar, your name is prefixed with a term called Pirzada.
Yes,
What is Pirzada?
Ma'am, ethno-linguistically, ma'am, Pirzada is a caste. It is said to have been the descendants of those people who, in the 15th and 16th century, migrated directly from Iran. So we say that there are many people who actually were Shaivites in the valley, but then later on they converted. But Pirzada is said to be the original descendants of the original Muslims of the valley.
Okay, so tell me, is there a caste hierarchy among in the Kashmiri Muslim society?
Ma'am, as much as we would like not to hear about these things, but unfortunately there is a sort of caste hierarchy, ma'am. If I were allowed, I will give an example of my own personal life. I believe that in the minds of the people of Baramulla, there is some sort of bias regarding the higher, so-called the people who are in the higher up levels of the hierarchy in terms of castes. I myself belong from the Pirzada caste, and I remember when I entered the college in GDC Baramulla, there was this aura around myself, which I could feel that the people of the rest of the communities, they would not link with me. They would feel that, in fact, they would even come to me and say that, no, you are a person from the higher caste. You know nothing about the miseries of our people. So there is, unfortunately, ma'am, there is some sort of caste hierarchy.
So, do you know 3 features of caste system which distinguish it from any other system, say class system or anything else? There are 3 distinct features of caste system. What are those features?
Right. Ma'am, 3 distinct features of caste system which distinguish it from, say, class system of the Western societies is first, it has got religious sanction. While as in class system, I see no religious sanction. The second feature is that it is inborn in people, what we call as it is ascribed. You cannot change your caste regardless of how much you wish. And ma'am, the third distinct feature, I feel that in caste system, there's a particular sort of profession associated with it. Again, ma'am, for example, if a father is a cobbler in caste system in Indian society, the child is supposed to be a cobbler, even if he wishes to be, say, a goldsmith or something like that. So, ma'am.
Endogamy, is that a feature of caste system?
Yes, ma'am. Endogamy. In fact, I believe that it's a very important feature. Caste system and thrives upon the feature of endogamy. There is this notion that one should always marry within one's own caste because the concept of purity and pollution, ma'am.
So, your father works as an auditor in the cooperative department.
Yes.
So, don't you feel that cooperatives are a failed experiment?
Ma'am, I believe that saying that they are a failed experiment, it is stretching an argument to a bit. I believe that there have been some lacunae in the sector, but at the same time, we also need to acknowledge the positive developments that the cooperative sector has brought. For example, talking of Amul, which is a great cooperative.
We all know about Amul. Tell me positive developments in cooperative sector in J&K and specifically in your district, Baramulla. What changes have you seen being brought about by cooperatives?
Right.
Ma'am, Baramulla is fast emerging as the face of the white revolution. So I believe that the milk cooperatives are something which is really leaving a mark on the society of Baramulla. In 2011, if I'm able to recall, ma'am, it was about 2 lakh liters of milk were produced per day. But it is due to the contribution of the cooperative societies and the people which are now taking a step forward. And as of now, Baramulla is able to produce about 5.5 lakh liters of milk per day. So I think, ma'am, yes, cooperatives do have played a role in society in Baramulla.
And our one final question, do you think there is any role of morality in international relations?
Ma'am, this is a contested concept. Realists believe that, or the people who support realists in present times believe that morality has no role in international politics.
I want to know about your opinion. Do you think it should have a role in international relations?
Yes, ma'am, it definitely should have a role. As far as the should part is concerned, there definitely should be some role given to morality in international relations, because ultimately, at the base level, it is the people, regardless of the cover up of the nation and the national security. It is the people who suffer or the people who prosper. So I think there should be the.
Can you give me some examples where I would not say immorality, but amoralism has led to a negative impact on various groups due to the policies of
There are international relations is, ma'am, in my concept, it is filled with examples of amoralism in international relations. For example, I believe that the chief propounder of the amoral doctrine is USA itself. For example, what is happening currently in Russia, Ukraine, or say in Sudan itself. The Western countries, although that they have the capacity or the willpower to actually make the conditions of the people better there, be it the refugee crisis or the civil war situation that is currently going on in Sudan, but still they do not put more emphasis on solving the solutions because they feel that this boosts their economy, it leads to refugee crisis, which is in turn haunting for their enemies. I think, ma'am, definitely more than moralism, there is immoralism going on currently in
What about our own country, our policy towards the Rohingya refugees? How do you see that?
Towards
the Rohingya refugees.
Ma'am, I think India's stance has been more than moral. So, because it is a known fact that India has not signed the 1951 UN Convention on Refugees or its other protocols. But still, if we talk about refugee crisis, say primarily currently in Myanmar, India is with open arms. India is accepting them and not just giving them home, shelter, but also giving them employment opportunities. So, I think India is showing a moral stance in IR when it comes to refugees.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Davar, you have mentioned functionalism. Can you differentiate functionalism from neo-functionalism?
Yes. So, the functionalism as a theory believes that the politicians should have no role in the international relations. While as the neo-functionalism, primarily propounded by philosophers like Ernest Haas, they believe that political scientists they believe that politicians should be given a role. We can't just leave the international relations solely to the non-political class. Political scientists have a role significant in IR.
Shed some light on India's engagement in Latin America.
Right, sir. So it is said that Latin America has not only been far away from the sight, but far away from the mind as well. But lately, there have been some emerging engagements with the continent. For example, if you talk about the lithium reserves, which are primarily found in Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile, the lithium triangle. India is more and more focusing upon cooperation with such nations so that we boost our own EV sector. So besides this, there is a humongous presence of Indian automobile manufacturing companies such as Bajaj or Tata in the Latin America. Besides this, there is also the people-to-people contact, which is in terms of, say, yoga centers, which are currently very popular in Latin American countries. And so also there was recently a conclave held in Goa to boost the development of the Portuguese-speaking countries. So that is another area of cooperation.
Okay, tell me, what do you understand by this phrase, that man is born free, but he is everywhere in chains.
Right, sir. So, if I'm not wrong, it is a phrase attributed to Rousseau, who is believed to be the father of social contract theory. So, according to this concept, man, as an innate person, was born free. God did not create him with certain foundations, but everywhere he is in chains, which are the chains of his own creation, which are the chains of his own mentality. For example, we talk of property. So Rousseau says that property is the biggest change. It is, in fact, the base thing which led to inequality in society, and which later on transcended to inequality between nations. So I think that is the concept of the phrase, sir.
Are you aware of the China's silkworm eating strategy?
Silkworm eating. So I've definitely gone through this. It is basically a diplomacy strategy of China, which is similar to the the gunboat diplomacy of USA, or some maybe it is. If I'm able to make a guess, I think silkworm eating strategy means slow and steadily encroaching upon the area territories of its foreign nations. Yes, sir, that is it, sir.
Give an example where China has recently done that.
So it has been doing it since its existence since 1949, be it with the 9-dash line in the South China Sea, or maybe what is happening currently with Taiwan, or for that matter, incursions on India.
What is India's Taiwan policy?
So India's Taiwan policy. So India has accepted the One China policy, but still maintains diplomatic relations with Taiwan.
You mentioned that your hobby is playing games. What kind of games?
So I personally like to play. So I personally like to play video games on computers. Sir.
Have you played PUBG?
So not that very much.
Why was it banned?
So it was banned basically although the game is American in its origin, but the servers that were hosting the game, the Krafton servers, they had some connections with the Chinese government, so that is why it was banned.
What is your opinion about banning these online games?
So I think in as far as the thing is concerned, that China does use these games and other platforms for surveillance purposes. I think it was a bold move on part of India, being the second largest gaming industry globally, still taking such a move, although detrimental economically, but may have been good politically.
So these games, precisely PUBG, was banned under which of the acts?
So it was the IT Act 2000.
Okay, what do you know about Operation Smiling Buddha?
Operation Smiling Buddha, right, sir. So it was a nuclear test conducted on 18th of May 1974, if I'm not wrong, in Rajasthan under the leadership of Indira Gandhi to ensure that India can develop nuclear weapons, sir.
Why do we call it Smiling Buddha?
So I believe it was the birthday of the Buddha.
Okay. What is India's nuclear doctrine?
Nuclear doctrine, right, sir. So there are 5 main principles of India's nuclear doctrine, which came out in 1998. So the first policy is the policy of no first use. That unless we are attacked by a nuclear weapon, not a conventional weapon, we won't retaliate with a nuclear weapon. So the second policy was to ensure that we have credible minimum deterrence. The third policy was to ensure that we go for massive retaliation in case of an attack. So the fourth policy was that there should be an authority called as Nuclear Command Authority, which will be under civilian control. And so the fifth one was the belief that India's interests are best served in a nuclear-free weapon world.
Do you think it's time that India should revisit its no-first-use policy?
Sir, it is obviously one of the most contested topics in IR and international foreign policy. But sir, if you ask my own opinion, I believe that India should not shift to first-use policy.
What are the reasons for that?
Right. So there are multiple reasons for that. First of all, the fact that shifting to a first-use policy would entail a use of huge amount of resources and technological infrastructure, which India can't afford at the moment. So second is that it also would be detrimental to India's image as an international superpower, keeping in mind the fact that China already has a no first-use policy. So the third is that if we shift to first-use policy, it can also lead to what we call as being trigger-happy, and it might give a leeway to the armed forces to ensure war. So these are the causes.
Okay, my last question would be, you mentioned that it is under civilian use. Who is the authority, sole authority or sole body responsible for launching nuclear attacks in India?
So it basically is the Nuclear Command Authority under the chairmanship of the Prime Minister.
Mr. Dawar,
Yes, sir.
so let me change the focus on mental health and physical health. So what is your take on longevity of life?
So in India, the longevity of life has been on an increasing trend post-independence, and it is a good thing. It has some negative things associated with it, because it leads to more of a burden on the state exchequer, be it in terms of pensions or taking care of the elderly people. But overall, it is a very good thing, sir.
What about old age homes? It is now coming up in Kashmir itself. So what do you feel about it? Is it a good or bad thing to happen in the society of Kashmir?
So rather than good or bad, I would categorize it as the need of the hour, because unfortunately there are cases in our valley itself that which lend it necessary for old age people to be given some sort of psychological, moral, and material support. And in that case, old age homes are really a good way ahead.
Are you versed with abuse in elderlies?
Yes, sir.
So what type of abuse you might have come across through paper or through news? So what do you think is more common in elderlies? What type of abuse is there?
Right. So there are multiple forms of abuse that elderly face in our present society, unfortunately. But chief among them are abuse in terms of not being allowed to live with their children and being sent to old age homes. So the second type of abuse is that since they do not have any monetary support, primarily in their old age, so children do not lend them that kind of support as well. So the third type of support is that the moral support. Sometimes what happens is that an elderly person, he just needs a person to listen to him, to talk about the things that for example, how a person would often talk about. My grandmother often talks to me about how she used to spend her childhood days and how she used to roam around the village. So these type of things. So, but this sort of moral support is also missing in the present case, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You are from Baramulla, you have studied from St. Joseph School.
Yes, sir.
It's known. What is the contribution of St. Joseph School in the education system of our valley?
Right, sir. So since the St. Joseph School was established in 1905, it is one of the oldest I should say, education institutions of the district. So its contribution has been immense. It has provided immaculate gems, be it in terms of doctorate in civil services itself, or maybe in terms of philosophy, teaching standard itself. So I think it has set a parameter. It has actually raised the bar. At least that was the case until last year. So having said that, I also realized the fact that Baramulla, the St. Joseph School, as of now, is seeing some sort of a degradation in its level, sir.
Baramulla was said to be, prior to the partition, the gateway to Kashmir.
Right.
What were the trade ways at that time prior to partition?
So prior to partition, Baramulla was rightly called as the gateway of Kashmir Valley. It is because prior to partition, the main route to enter the valley, it was through Muzaffarabad, Rawalpindi Road. So that was the main trade route through which most of the trade was connected between the valley and the rest of India. And primarily it was Pakistan, since it was a part of the subcontinent. So that was the main trade route before partition. But after partition, since that trade route was closed, now we move through Srinagar and the current national highway route that we have, sir.
Very good. What is the historical background of Baramulla?
Right, sir. So Baramulla has been a hub of historical developments. So if I were to trace the history of Baramulla, there are multiple phases. I for my own would like to start from King Bhim Sen. He is said to have laid the foundation stone of Baramulla, and that this was in 2300 BC. So this makes Baramulla evidently one of the oldest districts of the valley. So besides this, coming forward to the 8th century, there was the visit of by the famous pilgrim who was Hyun Sang. He is also said to have visited Baramulla. And during the time, it was the rule of Karkoda dynasty. And so beyond him, there was also Akbar, who visited Baramulla. It is also said that Akbar, he was the one who actually called it as the gateway of the valley. He also stayed there for 10 days. And beyond him, there was Jahangir, who also visited the valley. And so, regarding the cultural significance of the place, it has always been the hub of secularism. Even if we now analyze the district of Baramulla, we see the presence of multiple temples, right from Patan, Parhaspora till Boniar area. And besides this, we see the presence of churches and mosques as well. So that as well has been a great contribution of the Baramulla.
Is there any unique fruit grown in that area?
So there is the apple, but I'm not sure whether I know of any fruit that is not growing anywhere else. I'm sorry, sir.
Orange is there, lemon is there.
In the Udi sector.
Yeah, that's not in our other places.
Sorry, sir.
People think that will add. Anyway.
Thank you, sir.
Good. Davar, what I liked immensely about you is, you live your name. Davar is the one whose word carries authority. and the aplomb and the confidence with which you speak, and the way you weave your arguments so seamlessly with your language, and the conviction, the real conviction that's in your every word, whatever you say, that's amazing, really. The only thing that I would like to suggest to you is that such confidence always has a risk of slipping it. I'm not saying that that will happen with you, but that always has a risk that it sometimes slips into overconfidence or borders around arrogance. When tomorrow you will be in the chair, you know when you talk, others listen. You know. We may be very modest in saying that I have a humble submission. Actually, what we want to say is that I have a point, hey, listen to me. Now that you know that others are listening to you, the only thing that I would suggest to you is to deliberately take some exercises in just sounding very humble in your attitude, because God has given you such great ability to communicate your ideas with such fine skills and articulation. So that needs to be controlled. That is like humanizing your articulation to an extent that when you say, of course you say it with authority, but also say it with a modicum of, with a hint of honesty and humility, so that others also admire your quality not as a good speaker, but as a good human being also.
Yes.
I wish you luck.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great candidate.
Thank
I
you.
only have good things to say.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
There are a few things that I want you to be conscious about, because I want you to repeat that in the actual interview. You have a very good introduction, very good conference, as sir just said. Hand gestures are perfect. ठीक है, ना ही कम है ना ही ज़्यादा है, बहुत अच्छे से कंक्रीट आंसर्स है, खासतौर पर जो आपने 1 2 3 4 करके हर चीज़ को
आंसर देते वो दैट्स द बेस्ट अप्रोच.
या वो आपकी क्लैरिटी दिखाता है, लॉजिक दिखाता है. जो आपका आई कांटेक्ट है, व्हेन सर वाज आस्किंग यू क्वेश्चन, सो यू वर शिफ्टिंग आई कांटेक्ट बिटवीन द मेंबर्स, दैट इज ब्रिलियंट.
Thank you, sir.
ठीक है ना, जस्ट कंटिन्यू विद दैट, यू आर अ ब्रिलियंट कैंडिडेट.